Hello everybody, it's great to be with you today. I'd love to have been preaching at your church in person, but circumstances have meant that we can't. But we're going to make the best of a bad situation, aren't we? And today we're going to look at three things. We're going to look at revealing, restoring and renewing. I want to ask, what has God been doing in your life during lockdown? We're living in unprecedented times, aren't we? Although only in our generation. Obviously, others have gone through far worse with the Spanish flu and World War One and World War Two. But God has been using this time deliberately to do things in your life, hasn't He? Nothing catches God by surprise. He's allowed this as part of His plan. So I want to ask this morning: in what ways has God fulfilled His purposes in your life during lockdown? Well, I'm going to look at three things. The first thing I'm going to look at is how He's revealed things in us. He's revealed things in us. And having this time to stop and just think allows us to self-analyse. Obviously, too much self-analysis is bad because it can lead to despair. But too much focus on self is obviously never beneficial. But the process must always lead us to Christ, who is the cure for our sinful traits, isn't it? Which, like James's portrayal of a mirror in his epistle, you see the law. And the law points out your sin, just like looking at your face in a mirror. So in that sense, it can be a good thing, self-analysis. But there are people who never have time to sit down and think about who they are as a person and how they're living and where they're going if they continue on the current path that they're on. So in this time, our hearts and minds have become exposed in such an analysis. And, what are the emotions? I used to get fed up of watching talent shows like Britain's Got Talent or X Factor because you'd hear the phrase emotional roller coaster, nearly every week, wouldn't you? But lockdown really has been an emotional roller coaster for a lot of us. Myself, I would literally be happy one day and inexplicably sad the next. And you end up overthinking things, don't you, and becoming paranoid. Also, me being an extrovert, it would result in me feeling like a caged tiger during lockdown. So I ended up doing online debates, doing book reviews of the books I'd read, and doing thoughts for the day. And it all helped me to feel like I was getting out there. But if anyone knew what it was like to be on an emotional roller coaster, it was the Apostle Paul. He had hundreds saved 1 minute and was almost stoned to death the next. Miracles performed one day and thrown in jail the next. But those times of literal lockdown for him brought great blessing. To us, with his prison epistles, and to him. And we only have to look, don't we, at Colossians chapter 1, verse 24, which is one of those prison epistles. And in there, he says, I now rejoice in my sufferings for you, and fill up in my flesh what is lacking in the afflictions of Christ for the sake of his body, which is the church. That's a great verse. But in that verse, Paul is not suggesting that his suffering makes up something that's lacking in the saving power of Christ's death. No. He considers his persecution a service, one which Christ left for his followers to fulfill. And we're all called to suffer. And so when we suffer, we should consider it joy because we are fulfilling one of our callings and we are identifying with Christ who also suffered. There's an element here which suggests that Paul is suffering for the church, and I suppose while he was imprisoned, I guess the powers that be had the top dog and didn't need to go chasing after any others. He was a scapegoat, if you will. But we must all expect and will experience suffering from the world at some point. So embrace it and draw strength from it, especially if it comes in the form of persecution and trials. James in his epistle says this in chapter 1, verse 2, 3 and 4. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. It's almost as if he's saying there that we're not complete until we've been through a trial and had the opportunity to prove our faith. Through words in the face of persecution, or just by standing firm in the force of a trial. And for sure, I'm always nervous about a new Christian until they've actually come through the other end of such a trial. So, he's during this time of lockdown, he's revealed things in us. Secondly, God has restored us into better relationships. Now, we've been forced to, sounds bad that, doesn't it? But we've been forced to spend more time with the family. We've missed our friends so much that we've done something we hardly ever do. We've reached out beyond a typed text message and actually rang up to hear their voice. Who thought isolation would make us better connected? Relationships with family and friends have been restored. Now, the root word of restored is rest. When we're rested, when we rest, we are restored. And, we have rested, haven't we? Just like the Sabbath was designed to give us a much needed rest. Every day of the week has been a Sabbath for some of us, for those not going to work. It's like remember the Morrissey song, Every Day is Like Sunday. And something which had taken over Sundays was stopped in its tracks at the beginning of lockdown. Sports Super Sundays, have been taking all our attention away from what the day was intended. And although, we haven't been energetically engaging in sports activities ourselves, the very emotional engagement with which it provides has been filling our minds and in some cases darken our mood and level of anxiety if our team has lost or is losing. You know what it's like when you're urging your team on and it's not going the way you want, and it just builds up that anxiety and feelings within you. Bill Shankly's words: some people think that football is a matter of life and death. They're wrong. It's more important than that. Those words have come to prove false, as it was suspended during the height of the crisis, and football's only just started up again in the last few weeks. And people have had to find other things to do, like spending time with our family. My relationship with my children has improved through having more time. My relationship with my wife has improved through having more time. And through having more time, I've been able to do more housework, which has further helped to improve my relationship with my wife. So he's done three things. The Lord has he's revealed things in us, he's restored us into better relationships, and finally, he's renewed our focus on him. Now we'll look at three things that renewed focus on him does in our lives. Renewed focus on him makes us realise what is really important. Remember those magic eye pictures? You gaze for long enough and you'd see another image beyond all the dots, wouldn't you? Yeah? Well, with everything that's been going on, we've been looking up to the heavens and asking why, what now, what next. But that focus has been in the right direction, hasn't it, as a result? And we find that when we focus on the Lord, we find that everything else pales into less significance. Like the hymn, turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. So renewed focus on him makes us realise what is really important. Renewed focus on him increases our understanding of the need for evangelism. People are wandering around without a shepherd. The leaders of this world have let us down. Boris Johnson has jumped between plans of a herd community to instant lockdown. Donald Trump is suggesting just about everything under the sun. No one has faith in our leaders anymore. Even major organisations have let us down, like the World Health Organization and the Gates Foundation. So people are looking for the truth. People are looking for answers. People are looking for a leader who can bring direction and hope to their lives. And we have the truth. We have the answer. We have a leader, the Good Shepherd, who takes care of his flock. People are ready to receive the gospel. And God will give you opportunities if you are ready and expectant. I was on a walk just a few days ago with my three dogs, and this walk, the path just disintegrated and degenerated into just a mess of brambles. And I got up to this embankment and I thought, you know what, let's just see what's over there. I went up this muddy embankment and there was more mud and slime and goo before eventually you could see a road. Well, then I could see that road. It was this new carriageway. It was in the process of being built. I thought, if I get on that road and head that way, at least I can come back down the canal from the top end that way, rather than having to walk through all those prickly brambles again. So I did, and I got proper stuck in the mud, but eventually I made it to the other side. And anyway, while I was on there, this fella rolled up in his car, and it was the security chief, and he was wondering how I'd ended up on his building site and what on earth I thought I was doing there. But anyway, after having a chat with him and having a conversation with him, I was able to share something of God with him. And we had tons of coincidences in our life. We had the same dogs, and when I shouted one of my dogs to come back, who'd headed back over the embankment, I went, "Ace, come back!" He went, "Oh, one of my dogs is called Ace." He had a Springer Spaniel as well as me, and we shared a love of Springer Spaniels, and I was able to share something of my love for the Lord. And I said to him, I've actually happened to have a Bible in my pocket. Very rarely do I go out with a Bible in my pocket, but I did, and I just said to him, do you have a Bible? Would you like one? And he said, yes, I'd like one. So I was able to hand over that Bible, and he was really happy about that, which was great, and he offered his hand, and thus began the first handshake since the lockdown began between me and another person. But it was a beautiful moment, and just as I was leaving, he asked me my name. I said, "It's Paul." My name's Paul, just as if to further confirm that all those coincidences were meant to be. It was God leading me to him. And God will do things like that. He will give you those opportunities to witness for him and to share for him and to give for him if you're ready and you're expectant. Because unlike the world leaders who are faithful, he is faithful. Unlike our untrustworthy heads of organisation, he is trustworthy. And people need to know that they can put their total faith in him. So let's be busy about doing that now we've realised the need for evangelism. The final thing that renewed focus on God has done is it's increased our trust. Renewed focus on him increases our trust. Because the closer we walk with God, the more we learn about him. And the more we learn to trust him. I think the best example of this was Enoch, who walked so closely with God that God took him. Interestingly, by way of contrast, Adam, the first man, he was never born, but had to taste death. Enoch was born, but never tasted death. Enoch was translated from earth to heaven in an instant. He changed his place, but not his company, for he still walked with God in heaven as he had done on earth. My trust in him has increased. And one of the reasons is because with all the craziness that's going on, I know that he knows. He knows. The fact that nothing escapes God's attention, that nothing surprises him, that fact alone brings me hope and is comforting. I can pray to someone who knows what's going on. He knows. Like the chorus says, I do not know what lies ahead, the way I cannot see. But one stands near to be my guide. He'll show the way to me. I do not know how many days of life are mine to spend. But one who knows and cares for me will keep me to the end. I know who holds the future and will guide me with his hand. With God, things don't just happen. Everything by him is planned. So as I face tomorrow, with its problems great and small, I'll trust the God of miracles, give to him my all. See, he knows. And he knows what's best for us. Not everything that happens to us will be good, but it will be for our good. And the more we trust his intentions, the more we walk by faith, the bolder our steps will be. Remember an experience that the great preacher and writer Ron Dunn had when he was visiting a friend over in North America. And it was winter time and a lot of the lakes had frozen over there, and on a Sunday afternoon they went out for a drive, him and his friend, and they pulled up by one of these lakes, and his friend said to him, "Go and have a little walk on the ice, go on." So he had a very careful, nervous walk around on the ice and then quickly came back to the shore. And they got back in the car and they carried on driving. They went past another bit of the lake, and he couldn't believe what he saw. Because right out there in the middle of this frozen lake was a fella And not only was he right out in the middle of the lake, but he cut a hole in the ice. And he was sat on a crate fishing. And he was just saying to his friend, how? Look at that guy's faith. He's right out there in the middle of the ice, fishing away. It's just crazy. And his friend who was driving the car just said, oh, he's from round here. He knows the ice. Now I want to ask you something. Out of those two guys, who had the most faith? Obviously it was the guy out in the middle of the ice, wasn't it? But who out of the two guys, who was the most secure? Was it Ron? Or was it the fisherman? Neither. Because it wasn't the faith that held them up. It was the ice. So I hear you cry, well, what good does it have to have great faith compared to small faith? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, if you have little faith, you'll be like Ron. You'll be walking around on the edge of God's promises, looking for cracks in his promises, like Ron was looking for cracks in the ice. And your walk will be a nervous one. But if you have great faith in God, because you know him like that man knew the ice, you'll be right out there in the middle, enjoying the ice, enjoying your life, enjoying your relationship with God, because you have that perfect trust, that perfect reliance, and that perfect faith in God. So we pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the words that you give to us. And we just pray that you would speak to us and continue to speak to us as you have been doing during lockdown, and help us to move forward in that faith and that total trust and reliance upon you, who knows what's best for our life. And Lord, give us those opportunities to share that faith that we have with others, so that their walk can be secure as well. We thank you, Lord, for your grace, for your mercy and your goodness. In Jesus' name, amen.